another Thanksgiving, and that means that we have another Disney animated movie. It kind of became a Thanksgiving tradition. And just like always, we are there to see, well, the decline of Disney because every year each Thanksgiving Disney movie gets worse and worse and worse. And you know what? It's been going on in kind of like for many years that. Yeah, I think I don't exactly kind of pinpoint since when. I think it was probably since 2017 or so that and Disney animated movies are getting progressively worse and worse every single time. And by the way, I'm not counting usually the Pixar, or maybe they can count that one too, as well as the remakes. No, I'm not counting that. I'm not counting the ones from the Walt Disney movies. So they're going into that. And lo and behold, one of the biggest fears that I had is that one of my favorite Disney animated movies is that Zootopia was gonna get that same treatment. So when the movie was announced, I was kind of still hoping, kind of like my finger crossed that it doesn't fall into that curse. Because here's the thing, I do admit that I could consider myself a fan of Zootopia. It still to this day, I could consider that when it's about CGI animated movies, Zootopia might be my favorite of that category. I mean, look, I was so much of a sucker that I even bought the Art of Zootopia, and I really enjoy watching how the creative concept that went through this. I mean, I'm a big sucker of, when they have this kind of creativity on a world where it's, of course, full of animals and all this stuff. I mean, I'm a big fan of Osamu Tezuka. That kind of tells a lot, I'll say. I mean, I must not only that, I also got the Blu-ray. I even watched and had some kind of enjoyment of the shorts that they brought up, in which expands a little bit the universe of it. I even watched the spin-off series named Beastars. I know. Beastars is kind of like is an anime, is a manga also, different creators and all this stuff. But you can. People will have a lot of discussions when they're gonna find the difference between Zootopia and Beastars. Their similarities, their differences, and both of them, of course, they are valid and they're good. Well, until Beastars have this awful final arc, and the endings suck, by the way, unfortunately for Beastars. But the point is that they do. They're kind of similar, but nevertheless, I was kind of like crossing my fingers that Zootopia 2 was gonna have this curse that sequels usually they get worse and worse. I was fearing that it was gonna turn into a Moana 2, but then I got my first red alert. And the red alert is not the fault of the movie. It's my own fault. Because Zootopia 2 was gonna involve snakes.
Snakes? Why did it have to be snakes?
Yeah. Why do they have to be snakes? If you do not know me, I have a big phobia to snakes. I really don't like them. I have this kind of even like this irrational fear to them. I could even say that the world will be better if snakes will never exist. But people will tell me, no, they do good because they they control the rodent population, the crops. But I know that. But oh my god, the way their lifestyle about how their digestion work, how creepy they are, how they sling. I mean, when it's about snakes, I act like that teacher from Hantaro when he has this irrational fear with chickens. That's how I get even in movies. I get legitimately kind of like scared of snakes. I can tolerate it at least in the movies, but it doesn't help that they're scary. I even get scared watching movies like Snakes on a Plane.
Enough is enough! I have had it with these motherfucking snakes on this motherfucking plane!
Yeah, I thought exactly of that. So it was in a way I was kind of fearing that they're gonna bring a big positive light on snakes when I don't even want to know any positive stuff because of my irrational fear to them. And also considering some of the history that Disney is going through right now, and knowing what Zootopia is about, considering the first movie, there were some issues that I was a little bit kind of like still crossing my fingers, but also giving it a little bit of the benefit of the doubt that the writing is not gonna be as good as it is, and also it has kind of and also Disney has now this history that it is trying to be a little bit too preachy on their themes. Zootopia was preachy, yeah, but at least it was subtle and it didn't hammer into your head. Disney was going too much into that, but I think that lately, finally, they're toning it down. With something with Zootopia, I was well, just kind of skeptical. But either way, I really loved the first movie, so I decided to going in with an open mind. Even though some of the people who work on there, they're not the original people. Actually, this one is directed by the guy who gave us Encanto. Yeah, he was the director of Encanto, I think it was. Let me double check. Yeah, it was Jared Bush, and no, he was the writer of Encanto. Wait a minute, let me double check just in case. In case he was one of the directors of Encanto, and if you know me, Encanto is, I consider, a very overrated movie. I didn't like it. Well, it has promise, except that I really despise the ending of Encanto. But either way, there's always the benefit of the doubt, I'll say. So I finally went in, and I can breathe easily because Zootopia 2, finally, it kind of broke a little bit the curse of disappointments, because Zootopia 2 came up being good. Actually, it was better than a lot of Disney movies that we got lately. But it's not as great as the first one. There's some key elements that diminish it, but thankfully, the movie's still fun. It's still likable. It still have a little bit of the social stuff, but this one still keep it subtle enough so it doesn't technically hammer in your head, kind of like a bell. Nah, more is kind of like a flicker on it. But you know what? Every story has something to tell. Something about that. I mean, the funny thing is that the way I watched the story, and I kind of treated like I was watching one of the Yakuza story from that video game. Yeah. like a dragon. You know that. I haven't played the game, but I see a friend play it, and I got invested by the story of, and I like the characters and all this stuff. I begin to like the drama. So this is why I started to treat Zootopia like that. And it's easily to go with that. Although, as much as I was having a lot of fun and a lot of a big happy in my face watching Zootopia 2, I still have to be a little bit critical of not overhyping it and saying that there are a few elements that kind of diminish it a little bit compared to the first one. Although it's typical, and I don't expect anything to be kind of like perfect. But either way, this is the way it was treated. You can tell that Zootopia 2 is a better deal, a million times better compared to other sequels that Disney tried, like Moana 2 or Inside Out 2. It's much better than that. So I think I was happy that I came out with a big smile on my face. So anyway, let's analyze this movie. So you know, Zootopia basically is the world of animals. They live together in a community. They have their pros and cons of living in a society, but basically, of course, it centers on the bunny rabbit cop Judy and the sly fox Nick Wilde. Of course, they both Jennifer Goodwin and Jason Bateman they reprise their roles. And I'm not gonna tell too much details about the first movie, but basically they solved a big case on the first movie, which almost involves the downfall between the relationship between the species of predator and prey. And well, both they become cops, but in this movie they got a little bit over their heads and they want to do everything on their own way. But of course they showcase that they lack a little bit of understanding of themselves in order to work as a good team. Let's say that they do accept their teamwork, but they don't technically understand each other, which basically that causes some mayhem during their operations. And the chief it noticed that, and so they sent them into therapy. But of course, that's just the kind of like the core element of the sentimental part. The big case happens when apparently there is the snake that is trying to get this book, which it is a book that I forgot what was it called, but it has a metal cover, and inside it has the original patent that has the rights of the inventor of the thing that basically controls the weather on Zootopia. It is this weather machine that is the one that, well, how can I say it? Zootopia is divided in segments depending on the weather, and depending on the weather, this is where different types of animals go. You know, like flora and fauna, that they can live in certain environments and some don't, or sometimes they mix them. But basically, this is the machine that helps them live, and they're celebrating their 100th anniversary. But this movie is supposed to be the real 100th anniversary movie. I don't know. It could have been the better movie than Wish. But anyway, the inventor of this machine is held on a patent, and of course the owner of the patent is this family of lynxes, the Lynxley family. They're called. It pretty much had this powerful family. They own the patent. They own the rights, so they're respected by society. But apparently, the snakes want to steal it because apparently there's something in it that it might shock the world. But unfortunately, snakes as well as the reptiles are not seen very well on society, mostly because there was an incident that broke the relationship between reptiles and mammals. And well, Judy and Nick are involved into it. I'm not gonna try to spoil too much about it, but let's say that Judy wants to get involved in the case because she always wants to prove herself. She always wants to do the good thing. She always wants to play the hero. And Nick reluctantly do it because, well, she has Judy as her friend. He appreciates her, even though he's like, maybe we shall not get involved into it. That's pretty much the whole case in it. As for the character themselves, yeah, we got the characters. Like I say, Jennifer Goodwin and Jason Bateman and almost everyone, they reprised their roles of the character, the original character, of course. And just like the first movie, the biggest sellout and the biggest golden thing that this movie has is the relationship between Judy and Nick. They're both they're kind of like an odd couple, but at the same time, their chemistry is magnificent. In how much they appreciate each other, how much they jab at each other is brilliant. And the first movie does a great job kind of playing that. And this one, I really like that they build their friendship, but at the same time they kind of don't understand each other, but in different ways. In the case of Judy, she's so optimistic and more of a happy-go-getter hero that she fails to listen to Nick, while Nick is more reserved. He's a little bit cynical, but he's just like, he can't express in words because of his nature. Everyone, of course, both characters are solidified on their characters, for instance, the first movie. And I know that a lot of people always ship them. And you know what? I wouldn't mind if this blossoms into a romance. Because the way they do it, you can tell that it's subtle. And if that happens, it really will come out naturally. But the movie doesn't push it into your head about it. It shows so much kind of like a friendship. It is a friendship. They are professionals that they can work together as partners. Although they are kind of like subtle hints or kind of like a nudge, wink, wink. But considering their chemistry is, you will understand. And if that happens, I wouldn't mind because honestly, we got our practice run with Legosi and Haru with Beastars and shows that it could work. Man, how many times I'm gonna compare Zootopia with Beastars and all this stuff? Although I acknowledge Beastars is kind of like a different breed and is much darker. Although Beastars kind of does have a little bit more room to explore than Zootopia. Of course, I will say that most of the other characters that came from the first movie, they're mostly used kind of little, I would say. We do have, for example, Chief Bogo, Cloudhouser, and what was it? Some other characters they do appear, mostly kind of like for cameos and all this stuff, but they're still there. Even Shakira at Gazelle appears, and giving her kind of like this. I gotta admit, Gazelle's new song, well, Shakira's new song, I like it better than the first one. I mean, I like the first one, but the second one, I can get it out of my head. It's very energetic and really active. Although there is something that I really like about Gazelle, even though she doesn't appear much like the first movie, but they gave her a little bit more, kind of like a more badass personality in which I'm not gonna reveal much what happens, but she kind of get a little bit of a grudge against the Zebros. they're a new character that they're known as the Zebras, in which they're the cops and they're two zebras and they go, "Hey, zebras!" But they do something that it is kind of more. It goes kind of quick, and she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna remember you." And it pays off, by the way. That one gave me a little bit of a chuckle. There's, I will say that some of the other characters that are mostly concentrate on the new ones. One of them is this podcaster Beaver named Nibbles Maplestick. She's played by this Fortune Feinster. The way she talks, she almost sounds like Rosie O'Donnell for some reason. And she kind of comes as a character that you might get irritated a little bit by the voice and the way she's a kind of like, "Hey, how's it going, man?" But honestly, she's not that much. But you can tell that Nick is kind of like the character who goes like, "I don't know if I want to hang out with this character." Then we got, of course, the new elected mayor, Mayor Winddancer, who he is. If you notice, he's almost like a parody of Arnold Schwarzenegger when he became governor of California. Because he's a horse, he is how can I say? He was an actor. Now the mayor, and of course that he's not very bright. But thankfully he's also voiced by a very talented voice actor, none other than Patrick Warburton. Who every time I hear Patrick Warburton, I could always love to hear Joe Swanson. Too bad that he doesn't do the Patrick Warburton shout, especially when he says lines like,
Damn it, Bonnie! You lied to me about the poop sack!
Yeah. Yeah. This is probably my favorite Patrick Warburton line I have ever heard from him. Also, of course, there is this family called the Linksleys, in which they are. Let's say that they're a very, very powerful family because they basically are kind of like the founders of Zootopia by technicality, in which their ancestors they say that they practically invented the kind of like the weather machine and all that stuff. So it kind of becomes kind of like the most important people, and it's gonna be hard to touch them. But also they have enough power that if you step on the wrong side, they can eliminate you like that. They're basically the Zootopia version of the Tenryubitos from One Piece, or known as the Celestial Dragons, in which the Tenryubitos are worse because if you don't know, in the One Piece anime, these are people who are the founders of the world government, but because they gave them too much privilege, these people they have this elitist kind of mentality in which they begin to believe that they are gods, they are untouchable, they can do whatever they want, they can enslave people whatever they want, they can treat everyone like garbage because in their mind they are gods, they're untouchable, they can do anything, and their privilege is that nobody touch them and nobody can say no to them. And of course they do despicable, hateful stuff that they gain the hatred of almost everyone. So basically, they're kind of like the high bad guy. Let's say that's the Tenryubitos, and basically that's the idea with the Lynx. Of course, that in every family there is a runt. There is a runt who actually wants to try to help the cause, And that is the son, who is always seen as kind of like the runt, he's the useless one. I mean, he is played by Andy Samberg for starters. No offense to the guy. So basically, it's just this guy who he wants to prove himself to the family that he's not worth it, that he's worth it. But so he decided that he's gonna help Judy and Nick, well, mostly Judy, to the cause. I'm not gonna try to reveal much. Okay, I think I go with the elephant in the room, the thing that they promoted a lot, and that is the snake, was played by Ki-Hu Kwan, who you mostly know him as Short Round from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Which, ironically, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom is my favorite of the Indiana Jones movies. A lot of people say that is the worst, but well, now we got Dial of Destiny, so now we're even. And of course, there's Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, but that is debatable. But so I always like the Temple of Doom. I didn't mind that Short Round, but anyway, here's the thing. Even without my bias against the snakes, I am sadly gonna say that the snake named Gary, he is probably one of the weakest parts of the movie. The way that he is promoted and the way he actually even talk, I might have said that he was one step, probably is the Poochie of the Zootopia. And why do I say that? It's not that the character is badly written or something like that, but he's used sparingly, thank goodness. He used sparingly, but most of the time, the way he's a little bit on the background, and sometimes appearing, he only gets a little bit more prominent on the third act. We don't hang around enough with him in order to have some kind of emotional investment out of him. Maybe we could have if he will hang around with Nick and Judy almost for the majority of the movie, but it doesn't happen that. So the emotional, it kind of lacks a little bit too much of an emotional impact for me, at least as a character. Although it also comes up a little bit of a blessing, because the way he talks, the way of his mannerism and all that, in which he's kind of like, wow, look at this, I like the mammal and all this stuff, and a little bit, is Kiko Kwan having this kind of like a higher pitched voice. Yeah, Gary could easily be a very irritable character. He easily could have been an annoying character. Thankfully, they didn't use him too much, but at the same time, the way he isn't used into the movie, it wasn't too much. It wasn't enough, to make us care too much about him, which is a shame, because one of the things that one of the good things about this movie is that it expands a little bit more of the world building of Zootopia, especially in the world of reptiles, in which the reptiles are more kind of like the original people who live on this area of Tundra Town. But after that, unfortunately, Tundra Town expands, and of course, there's this subplot that they want to expand it a little bit more. That it's gonna take over kind of like the rest of the area where the reptiles can live, as well as some swamp creatures. Although I think we only get kind of like a glimpse of the reptile world out the what we see, in which it's almost like a bayou and something like that, is it still tells a lot about about their lifestyle. Oh yeah, and we also have kind of like this. What was it? I don't know what is this. What kind of reptile it is, but it's kind of like this lizard that goes something like that. With a lizard named Jesus, and he's played by Danny Trejo. Yeah, we get a little bit of a glimpse of that, and so honestly, yeah, the world building is pretty. It's still kind of like the interesting part of Zootopia. So, okay, now I'm gonna go with a little bit of cinematography in which, okay, it's useless to talk about, animation. Animation is pretty good. Disney, no duh, whatever. It doesn't try to be. It doesn't try to be, the biggest thing in the world, but at the same time, it still keeps consistent of the quality of the first movie, unlike, Moana 2, in which it was a huge downgrade compared to the first one. And of course, there's still some of the beats of the music. One of the things that I really like about Zootopia is that sometimes you really find some hidden stuff here and there, and in which you can get a lot of animal gags. The animal gags is probably another one of the big sells of this movie, especially when they try to make some references. There is a very funny moment in which they make a reference to a Pixar movie, and also to a Stephen King novel. I'm not gonna reveal exactly what it is, but my God, I can't escape Stephen King this year. I got this reference with it, and considering that this year I watched The Long Walk and The Running Man. And also they made a pun on New Jersey. I'm not gonna go much into that. Oh yeah, and also there's a subtle Coca-Cola hint over there. You'll have to see it. You'll have to see it to believe it. As for the themes, I'll say, like I did said that it concentrates. Does concentrate a little bit more on the relationship between Judy and Nick, and it could show their chemistry that, while not perfect, they're still meant to be great partners. And of course, there's a little bit of a hint on romance, but it's subtle that even if there's a will be or won't be, it first of all it's none of my business, but there's kind of like the open possibility. Well, that's the thing that I have to say for some people who they just want it. I'm not gonna be that kind of guy. Also, we do have a little bit more on the lifestyle of Nick, I'll say. Because we saw mostly about Judy, but now we see where Nick lives, what's his lifestyle. You see that he doesn't have kind of like the exactly perfect place, and most of the time he's just kind of like a slob watching Hulu. No, I'm serious. Here's your Hulu plug-in right away. And of course, there, that Zootopia is always used as kind of like a metaphor with like the lifestyle of people. They're caricatures in a way. The first movie, it was more between what was it? A discrimination between predators and prey, and because of what they eat or something like that. I did watch, of course, how the original Zootopia was going to be, in which it was going to be a little bit more harsh, I'll say. I wouldn't have minded to watch kind of like a movie like that. Although maybe the darker aspects, they're going to leave it for, they did leave it for Beastars. Even though Beastars did indeed, was a little bit more meticulously in addressing what predators eat. If they can eat, meat and all this stuff. So, if you don't know that answer at least the Beastars address it. In this case, because of the reptiles and of course the exile of reptiles and all that stuff, in ways I thought I thought that the movie was gonna be about immigration, and it wasn't like that. It has hints about it, but it's not about that. The movie is more about gentrification, I'll say. In which, but this was thankfully it wasn't kind of like hammered much in your head. It was mostly used as a plot device about patentship. Because you have kind of like there's a patent that could mean kind of like everything that could implode the worldview about what is going on. So I'm not gonna reveal too much about it, but let's say that it is as big as a catastrophe as the Pokemon versus Palworld thing. Well, that's the only thing that came into my mind, I'll say. Although I will say this is that I think that the movie does and here comes a little bit of some of the negatives that I'll say for not increase the ego out of it, because it is good, but it's not exactly perfect. If there's some negative I'll say about this movie, first of all, is that you can notice that they did recycle some aspect from the first movie. Even most of the gags of the first movie, they reuse it for this second one. And there's one moment in which I swear that they recycle a voice track from Jennifer Goodwin. That part, I don't like when they reuse voice clips. This is very lazy. And yeah, there were some recycled jokes, I'll say. Even though thankfully they're not abused, I'll say. They just go like, okay, here goes, take that, here goes, and that's it. They're just there for fan service and they're gone. So we'll leave it like that. Let's hope that for the third one, they get better. Yes, there's gonna be a third one because there's a post-credit scene. That's all I am gonna say. As for storytelling, I already said that the problem that I had with the snake is that the snake is not developed as so enough in order to have some kind of how can I say? Legit emotional depth. We don't hang around with that snake enough in order to have it. Most of the stuff that we know about is about his kind and not exactly him. And most of the time, what he does during even his dialogue is just being giving his puppy dog eyes during the whole movie. Just because he goes with those puppy dog eyes, I don't think that makes him technically a character. I'll say because we only hear him what he said, and he don't prove too much. You know what? I'm not gonna exactly reveal the twist, but I will say that in my head, I can think of a better twist than the one that we have. Because honestly, a lot of things could have been better if we could center a lot in which in the whole thing surrounding it. I mean, the whole thing surrounded by it is interesting, but the snake itself is not. He's not that interesting because he mostly is the MacGuffin of the MacGuffin. That's all. So this is why I consider Gary the Snake the Poochie or the weakest part of the movie. But despite snakes, I can still enough for me to really like Zootopia 2, one of the better Disney sequels I have seen, and I'm pretty open for more of the world of Zootopia because it's the world of animals and fauna and everything is still very, very, very big, and I'm open to see more Zootopia, and probably Beastars, and probably crossover with Sanda.